mother and he says, Mommy, I want to talk about our family ancestry, where we come from. So mother says, "Where come from?" And she starts waxing eloquent about her mother and grandmother and great. No, Mommy, all the way back. Where do we come from? I want to talk about the beginning. The beginning. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And on the sixth day, he created Adam and Eve, and they had children. I'm not sure why. And those children had more children, and the rest is his story, history, or actually her story. Okay. And where do we come from? Oh, this is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah. Comes to his father. His father was a very educated graduate of Columbia University and Yale University, an enlightened fellow. He says, "Daddy, where do we come from?" So Daddy tells him about the family lineage. No, the beginning. Daddy says, the beginning? It began with a primordial soup and a big bang some 15.3 billion years ago. And after hundreds of millions of years, billions of years of evolution, the Homo sapien emerged. So he says, "Daddy, I'm confused, but what were we before?" He says, "Before that we were apes." And what were the apes before? Oh, they were monkeys. And where did they come? They came from other primates. And how did it all begin? It began with an explosion of gas and bacteria. He comes back to his mother and says, "Mommy, I'm really confused about my bar mitzvah speech. I want to talk about where we come from. You tell me we come from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and God. Adam, Eve, God. Daddy tells me we come from apes, monkeys, and bacteria. So what should I say? Who do we come from?" And his mother says, "Son, there's no contradiction here. Your father was talking about his side of the family." And I'm talking about my side of the family. So this is a very profound idea. We each have two sides of the family. There's your father's side of the family, and there's mom's side of the family. I could look in the mirror and see an ape. And you know what? When I'm by a smorgasbord, I feel like one. And sometimes I even look like one. And it's true. It's true. There is a part of us that is a beast, and a beast has an image. A beast has an image. Only the human being was created in God's image. But I can also look in the mirror and say, you know what my image is? My image is that I have to choose an image. That's my image. I choose an image. There's no ropes. Kol nidre. Yom Kippur, I've absolved them. And that's what the high priest asks for. A year in which no person miscarries. A year in which all of your infinite potential, aspirations, dreams, possibilities come gushing forth. They emerge from your symbolic womb into the world to bring so much more light that our world desperately needs. And you know, I have to say, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I mean it actually in an inspiring way. 3 days before Rosh Hashanah was the funeral of Shimon Peres, the 9th president of Israel. 70 world leaders came to his funeral in Jerusalem to bid farewell, including the president of the United States, including leaders of Britain and France, and 70 countries were represented there. Very impressive. A Polish Yiddish Engel, a Polish little Jewish boy whose grandfather was burnt alive with 8 family members. And in 1942, his own grandfather, his name was Reb Tzvi Meltzer, a graduate of the Volozhin yeshiva that I spoke about before, the Netziv's yeshiva. His Zayda came from Volozhin. His name was not Shimon Peres, his name was Shimon Peresky, but that's a shtetl name. So of course, like many names, they changed it to Hebraic, Zionist sounding names, Hebraicized names. And here 70 leaders come. But there's something interesting about Shimon Peres, and that is that he kept on losing the Israeli elections. I don't even know if there was one election that he ever won. He kept on running and running and running and running, and he lost every election. By default, Rabin was assassinated, so Shimon Peres becomes an acting prime minister until Netanyahu defeats him. But this was the story of his life. Almost every office he ran for, he lost. You would think at some point a person should get a message and say, you know what? It's time to start eating laffa and retire into some farm or into some nice Tel Aviv condominium, and all is good. This man, at the age of 93, still had plans galore. So his son, Chami Peres, asks his father a short while before he died, he's 93, what should I write on your tombstone? And you know what Shimon Peres says? You should write, he died prematurely. There's a lesson in that. He died prematurely. What a profound lesson. And he worked and relentlessly. And they made fun of him constantly. And they wrote sometimes not such this. And you know that I believe that many of his policies were profoundly ill-conceived, especially one particular policy. But I'm not addressing now ideological or political disagreements. I'm addressing the drive of a human being to be born, not to remain pregnant forever. And look how he went out. There was no Israeli leader who was elected, who served for many years, who went out with that respect. Where world leaders had such a deep affection and respect for him. And I'm not now getting into the details again of his policies. I know it's a painful and it's a different topic. And today there was another terrorist attack in the holy city of Jerusalem. And it's all connected to the philosophy of appeasement, whatever. It's a separate subject, a painful subject. But it teaches us about human drive, about human ambition, about the ability of a person not to define themselves and say, I am a loser. Because that's what Peres could have easily done, and for justified reasons. In fact, they called him in Israeli newspapers, they would call him the eternal loser. You know, Jews are not stingy with titles for other people. Right? Ask your grandmother. How many words do we have in English for a poor person? I don't know, 2? A poverty-stricken guy and a pauper? How many words do they have in Yiddish? An oreman, a kaptzen, a shlamazel, a nudnik, a schnorrer, a lo yutzlachnik, an idiot, a klolle, a zudreiter, macht me mishuge, ken gar nicht tomid sein Leben, and many more. We're pretty good at titles for people, especially people that we like. So that's what they called him, the eternal loser. Imagine you were called in politics, not by your third grade teacher. That you go to therapy for. But what when a whole country calls you an eternal loser on newspapers? You sit down and you say, okay, I guess I'm a loser. Fine, let me go to therapy and figure it out. And maybe one day I'll be a winner. But so he could have had that image. He didn't allow that. And he ultimately becomes the president of Israel, very popular president. And he goes out and he's like the face of Israel to the world. The high priest asked for this on Yom Kippur, a year in which no woman, no person miscarries, because every person is filled with so much potential. And it's such a great tragedy when we die prematurely, especially when we die prematurely when we're still alive. Thank you. And now what usually happens is you go eat, to meditate on everything I said on a full stomach. Okay, we'll see you later.